Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the realest podcast in the dunya, the three Muslims, alhamdulillah, or in today's case, the four Muslims, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Unfortunately, I couldn't find the file with the Quran recitation, so for everyone who's asking, I just couldn't find it. Inshallah, next time we'll have it ready. But alhamdulillah, today we have an amazing panel, amazing guests, lots to be discussed because there is a huge issue going on in the world, in the ummah today. And inshallah, we want everyone to be educated on the topic so that we as Muslims can unite upon that which is true and we can protect the interests of the Muslims and the innocent people around the world. So, just to catch everybody up, there's currently a battle going on in Palestine and Israel. We'll try and not use any trigger words to get this taken down. Please share this with as many people as possible. So in Gaza, there have been over 6,000 bombs that have been dropped on them in less than a week. Less than a week. This is happening today. This isn't 20 years ago, 30 years ago. This just happened this month in October. And there's a lot more to be discussed. But I want to jump over to the panelists who have been up to date with the issue, not just recently, but historically. And I want to start with you, Brother Dilly. What is going on and what is not going on that people are claiming and misrepresenting the situation to be?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters, Mashaykh, Rami, Jazakallah khair for inviting me on. There's a lot to unpack. I don't think any podcast that's a couple of hours will do justice, because to assess the current situation, which started last Saturday with Operation Al-Aqsa flood, if you look at it just in isolation in terms of recent events, that would not be justice to the history of this entire conflict. We can go back to 73, we can go back to 67, we can go back to 1948, we can go back to the 1920s, we can go back to World War I, where it all started, when the Ottomans were defeated, or they gave Jerusalem after losing World War I, went under the British mandate. The Israeli entity was actually born from the British mandate. The mass migration of European Jews going over to the Ottoman lands, and then after that, the British mandate, that had ramped up in the 1920s. Jewish settler terrorism had begun in the 1920s. Or we can look at it from the perspective of Arab normalization, which is another hot topic at the moment, especially with the foreign policy moves of Mohammed bin Salman and Mohammed bin Zayed, but more so the former. But then we can also look at the history of Camp David and the Oslo Accords, when Egypt and Jordan normalized relations with Israel. So I'm just trying to give a glimpse of how complex this conflict is. But if we just take the events of last Saturday and why it feels different, can I ask the Mashayikh and Rami, does this particular engagement feel a bit different to the previous ones?
I wanna start by just giving my own thoughts, because the earliest childhood memory I have is me watching a video of a compilation of the atrocities committed against my people, and this is the kind of memory that has been recovered in light of what has happened recently. So the difference between back then and now, for me, I would say, is it seems like a huge chunk of the world, Muslim and even non-Muslim, are really getting behind the innocent Palestinian people.
Mm-hmm. Sheikh Uthman, does this time feel a bit different?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu salam ala Rasulillah. You know, the first thing I would say, as a Muslim, and as every Muslim, we believe in the protection of human life. We believe in the protection of every human life, and we believe that children should not be killed. We believe non-combatants should not be killed. And what we are seeing, at least from what sitting where I'm at here in the US, is basically what I see is a prison, Gaza, and a genocide just being carried, where people can't really leave Gaza. It's not like you can, people don't understand. It's not like you can just pick up your, passport and be like, yeah, I'm going to go to France, or I'm going to go for vacation to, there's a war going on. You can't leave. It's a prison, right? You have no electricity, you have no water, you have no food coming in, you have no help from anybody else. And then you're just, even if you have nothing to do with the ruling government there, even if you have nothing to do with anything, you're just sitting there getting bombed. And the insane thing is, the whole world is sitting there justifying it, which is crazy to me, right? Now, to your question, does it feel different? Uh, I mean, I don't know, because Jenin was horrible. If you remember the massacre that happened there, this is not. People think that this just started from that thing on Saturday, but this has been going on.
Absolutely.
When imagine if you're watching and you're not Muslim, just imagine you are in London or in New York, and let's say Mexico, for example, in the US, Mexico decides that California and all of this was our country, whatever, we're taking it over. And then they block you in, so you can't leave New York, like escape from New York kind of thing, right? And then after that, they blockade food, they blockade water, they blockade everything. And then you live like that day in and day out for years and years. And anytime you try to escape from there, you're called a terrorist, you're attacked, you're villainized, right? So people start to lose their mind. Like imagine living like that. And then if somebody that you have nothing to do with, for example, does something, and then they just carpet bomb your block, your parents, your children, your neighbors are just being killed. And the whole world is sitting there going, well, like this is insanity to me. Like, to me, this does feel different because the scale of the operation this time, the number of people dying, and what I'm worried about, may Allah protect all of our brothers and sisters around the world, is the future. And this is according to the oppressive government that is carrying out this genocide right now. This is the beginning. They haven't even started the ground assault, right? And people around the world, news media is the way it's being. It was all media's always had a bias, no doubt to that. Like, we know that, everybody knows that. If you're on the right wing or the left wing, everybody knows media has a bias, and which media channels have what bias, we know. But this is a insanity, because no matter which side of it you're on, you're only telling one story. And like Rami said, people around the world this time, what I'm seeing as a difference as well, people in different countries, not just Palestinians, not just this, not just Palestinians, not just this, people of conscious non-Muslims, and by the way, Palestinian Arabs are in the same situation, and there are non-Muslim Palestinians that are being oppressed as well, and their voice is muffled by the evangelical pro whatever, taking money from lobbies, Christians in the US. So now people around the world are starting to say, hey, wait a minute, we're hearing this in the media, but with the power of social media now, right? This is a game changer now. See, what people don't realize is that in the past, these major media organizations, I'm not going to mention their names because then they'll, flag this, right? But they controlled what you saw, right? So something would happen, and there was only one story told, and that was the story they wanted to tell. And if you were sitting in Russia, you would hear a different story. In America, you would hear a different story, right? But now with social media, with people taking their cell phones out and recording white phosphorus going through the sky and uploading that, now with people like us coming online and people who are sharing this stream right now and taking clips and putting them, it's changed the game. Right now, people can see what before the powers would hide. And now that people see it, as long as they stand up for that which is right, I think this time it's going to make a change.
Inshallah, ya Rab. Inshallah, 100%. And
Inshallah.
as you mentioned, the people, I think this is an amazing point. The people who sit and they feel like they can't do anything, you can. Taking a clip of what Sheikh Uthman just said, of what Dilly Hussain just said, of what we're going to talk about, and putting it all over social media is making a change. SubhanAllah, before I bring it to Sheikh Usta to give his answer, I want to say that there have been multiple people, not one, multiple people who I said, can you make this banner for me, this poster for me, this thumbnail for me so we could talk about Palestine? And when they did, I'm like, okay, send me your PayPal. They're like, I'm just doing this for the sake of Allah. What do you mean? You know how many people have done that? You can do that as well. These small things, use your skills, inshallah, to defend the innocent people around the world. And Sheikh Usta, I want to ask you, I believe probably the oldest one here, if I'm not mistaken. What have you
And the most handsome.
experienced? May Allah bless you. What have you experienced, and how does this seem different, if it does, in previous events?
Should I take it as a compliment or
The most experienced.
Compliment for sure.
most experience is nice. May Allah bless you. Allah barik fikum.
Compliment for us other two on here. Yeah.
طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله جزاكم الله خير. All three of you, may Allah bless you guys. Wallahi, yani, to maybe going to Dilly's question, really, definitely, this is not there's nothing different about what's happening. I think the Ummah of Islam for the last 150 years, at least 100 years, has been humiliated everywhere. Like it's not really about Gaza, to be honest, basically. And I'm not really today. You might want to discuss Gaza in specific because this is the current issue, right? But you forgot the East Turkestanis, the Uyghurs, you forgot Burma, you forgot Kashmir. Today, basically, there's Muslims in India, which is talented in the Western media to be the largest democracy in the world. There's Muslims getting killed with swords and spears just because they're Muslim or just because there's a rumor they're eating beef. The world is becoming a very sad place. And I would like to basically say that no, I don't think basically images are enough. I think images stir emotion, but emotion was never basically the leading or the reason why civilizations get built or nations get built. At best, basically emotions due to these videos coming out of Palestine and everywhere else basically might just have a knee-jerk reaction. People might cry, people might make dua, people might go put some sadaqah, they can go to a protest. But this is not what makes an ummah great and make an ummah safe, create peace and justice in the world. I think as Muslimin, we have a duty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this earth a peaceful place, a better place for everybody, where everybody, Muslims and non-Muslims, can live in cohesion, in justice, in the peace, in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to have. How do we get there? The elephant in the room is that basically the Muslim ummah must be united. This unity, nobody's speaking about. You go to millions of khutbahs, really the same rhetoric we've been hearing since you brought my age. The same rhetoric I've been hearing for the last 30, 35, 40, 45 years, whatever it is. It's the same thing. Just make dua and put some sadaqah somewhere and just go to a protest here in the West, basically write to your MP. Nothing changed. Actually, the response of the Western leaders is pretty as Sheikh Uthman said, is pretty ridiculous. It's very, very disgusting, to say the least, to be honest. So the Muslimin need to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and rely upon themselves. We need to put our hands together. We need to start calling for unity. We need to say that this ummah is one ummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that this ummatukum ummatan wahida. Your Muslim nation is one. We're not Bengalis and Pakistanis and Egyptians and Lebanese. We're Muslim, period. There's no Muslim this and Muslim that. We've been dividing and bickering among each other. We can't even sit and talk. We always basically have dhann as-su' about each other. We can't. We such a population will never basically reach success. And today I'm speaking to all the youngsters in the ummah. Please don't repeat the same mistakes we've done. Don't. And I basically call out to all the imams, especially here in the West, that we need to do our job by teaching the ummah, by guiding the ummah, that there's path for success, there's path for making the Muslimin safe again, for Islam to basically become dignified again. And that's basically when we put our hands together. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it very clearly in the Quran. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Meaning, obey Allah and His Messenger and do not fight amongst yourselves. Do not bicker amongst yourselves. Do not divide amongst yourselves. And if you do that, the natural common sense result to division is weakness and failure and humiliation. Like, to be honest, it's not magic. It's not secret recipe. We couldn't unite until today. It's been 100 years since the Ottomans have been beaten in World War I, and our lands from Morocco to Indonesia has been occupied by the great powers of the world. And nobody wants to discuss this anymore, it seems. Everybody just wants to say, well, focusing themselves, do your 5 daily prayers, you finish that, do your sunan, you finish that, do some recitation, you finish that, do a little bit more tajweed. And the blood of the Muslimin is honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be more worthy than the Kaaba.
Sheikh
How
Usta,
can we go ahead?
Sheikh Usta, do you believe the unity that you're talking about? Do you believe that a manifestation of it is a caliphate or a state of some sort that would militarily intervene to defend the Gaza? Is that what we're talking about here? In terms of more of a long-term solution, because if we're talking about Gaza specifically, as in the recent events, as just current affairs and recent events of what's happened, how we got here. If we're talking about long-term solutions, where it sounds like you're very clearly stating or alluding to, are you talking about something like this?
So there's no short-term solution. This is what I'm trying to say. There's really no short-term. What is the Muslims going to do right now? Look at the Muslims. Look at the Muslims in Jordan right now. They're protesting basically by the tens of thousands. They cannot do much. Who can save right now? Basically, there's 10,000 people injured in Gaza. There's 3,000 killed in Gaza. Nobody can basically look at the Egyptians. What are the Egyptians doing? They block the border.
Practically speaking,
It is the duty of the Egyptians to intervene and save the Muslims in Gaza. Whatever the solution is, whether basically to why are the Palestinians basically locked within that little cage? Basically, where is the Egyptian government to save them? Right? Why is the border between Gaza and Egypt blocked? You see what I'm saying?
Your observations are absolutely correct. I say this because what you're saying, many would agree with, but some may be asking, how does that practically look like in terms of the processes of how the international order works? Yes. What does Egypt militarily intervening look like in a global context?
No, I didn't say militarily. You said militarily. Egypt right now, basically, first of all, if we consider that the Sisi government gonna intervene, it's a dream. So let's not speak about dreams. What we need to do, what we need to understand is that the result of World War I have brought the people to power in all of our countries between Indonesia to Morocco that are not really basically serving the interests of the Muslimin and Islam. And it is upon us basically as Muslim Ummah, as 2 billion Muslims, to start speaking about the solution. The solution is that we need to live by our values. We need to live by our Islam from a legal perspective, and we have to unite amongst each other. This unity basically is a project, and this unity that we've lost 100 years ago cannot basically be recreated in 2 days or 3 months or whatever it is. And that, but see, what I'm trying to basically pinpoint here, Dilly, is that when we don't speak about the solution, this ummah going to continue for another 100 years of humiliation. What we need to do is basically
how does it practically look like? What does the solution practically look like?
It's very simple. Basically, well, you're not American. You're British. Yeah. So the Americans basically back in the 1700s kicked you guys out because they said, well, we need to unite and basically create something a little bit more reputable, dignified from their perspective. And they united the 13 colonies. And they rebelled against the British colonialists, pushed them out, created something very, great from their perspective, which is the United States of America. Why is the Europeans basically trying to create a European Union? Why is the Americans basically created a United States? Why is basically everybody trying to unite? And we as Muslims who are one people don't have this unity. What I'm saying directly and hopefully by my voice is loud enough, is that people from Morocco to Indonesia must be unified in one structure, and that is basically the unity that we need to start speaking about, so it becomes a public opinion and becomes a public demand of the ummah. Every Muslim in the world needs to say, look, we are one family and we need to live together under one umbrella with one leadership. You understand what I'm trying to say?
But that's the thing, that no doubt all of the Muslim Ummah has been saying this. We've been saying we need to be united. I mean, I've traveled across the Muslim world, as have all of you, and you hear this everywhere. Like this is a no-brainer, right? We all want to be united under one authority, under one hand, under one leader. I mean, and I've been to Indonesia, I've been to Malaysia, I've been to Pakistan, I've been, in the Middle East and all of that. The problem gets to be, in my eyes, if you're talking about the bigger picture, right? Like to me, and again, protesting hasn't done anything. Look at what protesting did for Tibet. People have been protesting for Tibet for I don't know how long, right? China doesn't care, right? To me, you know, just expecting the UN and the US and this to do it, it's not working, because, you know, money, and that's what counts there, right? When you talk about the Muslim Ummah and being united and being one, it sounds great. But the problem gets to be is everybody's idea of unity is follow me. This is our big issue right now, right? Like some organization will pop up, some firqa will pop up, some, you know, somebody will have this flag and that flag, and they'll be like, unity means follow me, right? And that's just not going to work, because everybody has their own political goals. Everybody has their own idea what Islam is. So when we talk about making a change, one of the major problems we have are people jump the gun. Instead of really doing a grassroots work where you educate the Muslim Ummah, I mean, right now, how many Muslims, if you're watching and you're Muslim and you don't make your 5-time salah, this is the first problem you're beginning with. The Prophet ﷺ told, "Man tarku salah faqad kafar." And whoever abandoned the salah has verily for surely committed kufr. How much of our ummah doesn't even make the 5-time salah? We're talking about being united and taking sacrifices and moving forward. You know, if you, I mean, and I don't want to point out Egypt or any other country by name, because, you know, I'm not trying to throw blame on any particular people or countries or governments, but you know, look at our movies, look at our industries, look at our, you know, look at our mindsets, look at the corruption in our countries. It's worse than the West. The most corrupt country in the world are Muslim countries, and that's something we have to fix. This has to be a return to the Kitab and Sunnah. This is the only thing that can unite us. So to go back to the Quran, to go back to the Sunnah, to go back to Muslims caring about their religion, right?
Sheikh Uthman. So, sorry, I want to make sure that you're done. I'm not cutting you off. So,
no, go ahead.
Okay, Bismillah. So as a youngster hearing this, I think you made a fair point that everyone's idea of unity is just come follow me. So something I hear a lot is 95% of fiqh is ikhtilafi. What are these Muslims disagreeing upon? What are these Muslims, where is the bickering and the problem with their disagreements getting in the way? And if every Muslim in the world, you know, were to establish salah, how does that from step by step lead to this
excellent
ummah we want?
Excellent question. First thing, saying 95% of fiqh is ikhtilafi, I don't think that's actually a stat, because the majority of the major things we all agree on. I mean, there is no Muslim that I've ever met that said there's no 5-time salah, or Fajr is not 2 rak'ah, or Dhuhr isn't 4, or you don't pray between these times. You know, the major things, even if you look at the basic arkan of salah, there may be ikhtilaf on some of them, but many of them, all the madhahib will agree together and so on. So I don't think that's true, right? I think this is something that people use who haven't actually studied. Secondly, the issue of ikhtilaf doesn't divide us within fiqh. Yani, for example, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, they weren't fighting each other. They weren't out there trying to disregard each other. Rather, when they met each other, they met, you know, for example, Imam Shafi'i studied from Imam Malik. Imam Shafi'i had held views that Imam Malik didn't. And Imam Malik held views that Imam Shafi'i didn't, but that didn't divide them, right? So that's not really the issue. The issue gets to be that on the core components of Islam, like for myself, you know, when you see Dilly, I was there with you in the UK, right? I'm not an online influencer, but I do give da'wah, and those videos are posted, right? Many people right now, people who say that la ilaha illallah, whatever, may disagree with me on certain issues, right? We may have disagreements in fiqh, we may have disagreements, but you will notice that I always try to keep this where I don't make videos against people. I don't make videos mocking people, right? Even if I make a video explaining an issue, like when me and Dr. Zakir Naik had an issue, we sat, we talked, we have a love for each other. We don't divide each other. We present our evidences, right? But we have many Muslims that are just sitting there right now, waiting for you to slip up just to get views of mocking you, right? So this is not an issue of ikhtilaf. Like me and Dilly, maybe, and I don't know Dilly, I mean, I've never prayed at the same time as you, because, you know, we just met and we went to the masajid to pray, right? Maybe me and him pray very different. Could be. I don't know, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit there and be like, Dilly, I'm going to mock you. No, this is stupidity, right? Our ummah has this hasad right now that has to be taken out. And us establishing the salah, don't forget, don't underestimate the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not like again, when you talk about lobbies and things, there are two playing fields. One is that of the kuffar, and that is whoever has the money, the power, the lobby, they win. One is that of the Muslims. That is, whoever has the nusrah of Allah wins. This is how Badr happened. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave nusrah. That's how the Fatah of Mecca happened, from the nusrah of Allah. So when somebody leaves salah, when somebody leaves zakat, somebody takes rishwa and brings the la'na of Allah, who takes bribes and brings the la'na of Allah, when somebody is out there, this is where the nusrah goes away. One of the scholars, he said something very interesting, and it's not like a hadith or ayah, it's just a statement, but it was profound to me. He said that, in the 6 Day War, and if you know the history of Palestine and that you know about the 6 Day War, some of the people asked some of their scholars, what happened to the Malaika of Badr? And what happened to the Nusra that used to come in the time of the Prophet ﷺ? So this scholar, being a funny guy, again, there's not Quran hadith, this is a statement. He said the Malaika came, but when they looked at both sides, they didn't know which one was the Muslim, so they went back. When the Muslim army is not making salah, when the Muslims are not following the Kitab and Sunnah, how do we expect the Nusra of Allah? So when Muslims go back to the religion, that's when they unite. When Muslims take the identity of I'm a Muslim, it has to come with Iman. It doesn't come with, when you're lost drinking and trying to just make money in any which way, then that is lost, right? So you have to revive the Ummah. You have to revive this love for the Kitab and Sunnah, about learning who were the Salaf al-Salihin, who were the Sahaba, who were the Imma, our role models, those that set that precedence, that united the Ummah. As Imam Malik said, the later part of the Ummah will not unite except what the earlier part was upon, right? So this is very important. When you see right now in America, there's millions of Muslims that don't even care what's going on there. This is very unfortunate, but it's a reality we have to deal with. In the UK, around, like we mentioned earlier, we have almost 2 billion Muslims. 2 billion, almost, right? But how many are just lost right now? They're more worried about what's the next Netflix special coming out than they are about what's happening to our brothers and sisters. So there has to be a revival. There has to be a waking up that goes back to the Kitab and Sunnah, to the way of the Salaf al-Ummah, to the way of those great Salihin that set examples for us. And look, I'm not saying that we don't address the issues going on. I'm here for that reason, right? I'm not saying that we don't take concrete actions, but actions have to be grassroots, because just talking and just saying is not going to do anything. I tell you something. One of the things with One Message Foundation is I was sick of sitting around and looking at the situation Ummah and not doing anything myself. I said, okay, what can I do as a person? Well, at least I can go out to the park and speak to people about Islam. Alhamdulillah. I said, let's do it, right? From that, and I'm telling you, I don't have an Instagram account. I don't have a TikTok channel. I don't have, me personally, I don't, right? But there are people on those platforms, like Rami said earlier, right? That took those clips, that made videos, that posted them on their social media. Right now, well, alhamdulillah, we've had more than 3,000 people that have accepted Islam, right? Now, that's just one aspect. What I'm saying is, when Muslims start taking that role that, okay, I'm not going to compromise on the Quran, I'm not going to compromise on the Sunnah, I'm not going to compromise on my principles and goals, I'm not going to sell out anything from the religion, but I'm going to start taking steps and I'm going to start calling people towards it, to back the Quran and the Sunnah, this will make a major change. Somebody's got a mic issue.
If I can just respectfully come in, Rami.
Obviously, can I quickly say that, inshallah, this is the root of the whole discussion. So I don't want people to get lost in the sauce. When we talk about stopping what's happening in Gaza, understand that this discussion is the foundation for stopping that and many atrocities that have happened in the past, could happen again in the future. We will talk about Gaza, we will talk about all that, inshallah, but this discussion is important.
So if we're gonna talk about not so much about Gaza in terms of Operation Al-Aqsa flood, the response, the geopolitics, the current affairs, the chronology of events that led up to, but we're starting actually with solutions and working backwards, then what I will posit to our two Mashayikh and to Sheikh Usta is that last Saturday, the Palestinian resistance groups, which is not just limited to Hamas, carried out a military operation into occupied Palestine, or what the Western audiences will know as Israel. For the first time since 1948, they managed to take back some settlements. In the 73 war, Syria penetrated the Golan Heights, Egypt penetrated Gaza, but this is the first time since 1948 where the Palestinians have fought back and they retook some settlements. The reason why the response from the Israelis has been so heavy-handed is because of the military casualty from the operation, the number of hostages that were taking place, and the pure shock in which it created the Israeli security apparatus. So I just want to ask Sheikh Usta, and then obviously Sheikh Uthman as well. Since we're talking about Gaza, but we're also talking about solutions. So here we had the Palestinian resistance groups, of which Hamas is a part of, but not the only one. They carried out this operation. It was widely well received around the Muslim world. It was seen as a victory. It was celebrated. Thousands, if not tens of thousands, took to the streets, not necessarily because, or not at all that they were Hamas supporters, but because the Palestinians fought back in defending their land, their homes, their families, and their honor and their dignity. Now, there'll be some that will say, well, the Palestinians brought this upon themselves. They would say, well, we'd rather die fighting and with dignity than for a foot to be on our neck and for us to die anyway. So what I'm positing to our two respected elders here is that the operation happened. Now we're waiting for an imminent ground invasion. The cry towards Muslim rulers, the cry towards Muslim armies, there's literally videos doing the rounds of people in Gaza saying, oh, Arab nation, oh, Muslim nation. This is a common call, it's a common cry. Why is that?
Allah bless you for asking the question, because I think it really was the comment I was going to make based upon Sheikh Uthman. Sheikh Uthman said basically that doesn't want to accuse any of these governments basically on anything. This is not, I don't agree with that. I think basically the Egyptians and the Jordanians and every Muslim country, especially those two, basically are responsible, and they are partners in the crime of killing the Muslims in Gaza and the Muslims basically in the Duffa in the West Bank, 100%. And this is our issue. Our issue is basically these tyrant rulers not moving a single finger to save our Muslim people. Period. Like you don't need to ask a sheikh. Dilly, if you're waiting for a sheikh to answer you, this is a problem.
No, but
as a Muslim ummah today, we need to mobilize the whole resources to safeguard our honor and dignity. Period.
Can a Muslim nation intervene militarily? Can a Muslim nation intervene militarily without it necessarily being some kind of Islamic polity? Why cannot Egypt as it is, or Jordan as it is? We've seen historical examples of military intervention. We've seen Turkey intervene in Syria. We've seen Saudi intervene in Yemen. We've seen that Muslim countries today, nation states, do intervene when it's according to. But what I'm saying is that
since when, Dilly, this is a question. I'm almost basically gonna laugh. Since when a single Muslim, so-called Muslim governments basically intervene for the interest of the ummah? Since when? They never did, and they never will. Basically,
we're talking about military intervention. Not
I think that's a very broad statement. Are you saying never in history? They never did in history?
No. In the modern history, basically after World War I.
You have to be careful. Hold on.
Let me just finish my point, inshallah ta'ala.
Okay, go ahead.
Sheikh Farooq, he asked me a question. I need to really basically at least respond if you don't mind. So today, basically, whether the Saudi regime, the Egyptian regime, the Jordanian regime, every Muslim regime is fully responsible. Period. And will they basically intervene? No. Who would expect them to intervene? They're actually blocking even basically people to help or even send even aid.
So what are you saying?
The Egyptians have blocked Gaza. The Egyptians have blocked medicine from Gaza. The Egyptians have blocked basic food from Gaza. So if we basically are saying, if we expect them to basically intervene further to save our people, it's not going to happen. And that's why it's very important to understand what we need is to unify the hearts of the believers. Now, Sheikh Uthman, I want to go back to what he was saying. He's saying, like, if a person doesn't pray, we need to make him pray. I don't think that is the issue. I think this is a red herring. I think the people already praying need to unify amongst themselves because they're divided. You brought up basically a claim, Sheikh Uthman, that basically everybody wants to unify everybody on their attitude or in their values or in their adoption or in their their own way of thinking. And this is not correct. I think basically there's lots of people who just want to unify under Islam. Islam has two parts to it. There's qat'iyat and there's dhanniyat. The qat'iyat are the certain parts which are basically a specific portion of Islam. Nobody's going to differ that we have to pray 5 times a day and so forth. But the area of ikhtilaf, the area of difference in opinion, is a substantial one. And this is where basically we as Muslim preachers and Muslims, imams and scholars and leaders need to understand that we need to allow each other to differ. What we have today is Sufis criticizing Salafis and Salafis criticizing Sufis and so forth. This divide amongst us will continue for a long time. We need to unify the heart and understand that basically there's certain issues we need to respect, that other Muslims have the right to have their opinions, and we need to put our hands together. And this is not happening. We need to resolve this issue and work towards basically replacing these leaders that don't care about the interests of Islam by electing ones that care about the deen, care about us as Muslims and care about the deen. Period.
I want to let guys 1 second
elect these leaders now.
Okay, 1 second.
They came in by force.
1 second.
So all I want to ask is this. I didn't talk about and this applies. Sheikh Uthman, to be very brief. It's not that have Muslim countries militarily intervened for the sake of Allah, for the sake of the Ummah, but we have had examples where Muslim countries, for whatever reason, self-interest, foreign interest, external interest, they have moved, which means that they can move. Which means they can move.
Sure.
That's what I wanted to just say. It wasn't that I said that they intervened for Islamic reasons. I was saying that there are many examples where they have moved, albeit for whatever agendas that may not be aligned with Islamic revival. That's all I just wanted to say.
So just to be very clear, first and foremost, this is one of those things where people just want to pick somebody to throw blame on so we can sit there and shake our fists. These leaders, it's their fault, right? Where does the leader come from? Where does the tyrant come from?
Is it their fault? Let me finish. Hold on 1 second. I need to stop you here, basically.
I'll let you speak, didn't I? I allowed you to finish. So now you're going to give the same courtesy back. So where do leaders come from? To be honest, I mean, like let's just be honest, right? Any country you take that has a dictator or a king or a tyrant or whatever you want to say, in the end, if he didn't have the military support, he wouldn't be there. Where does the military come from? The military is not like brought in from another country. It's the people of the same country. If the military wasn't from the regular people, then that military wouldn't have that mindset. Of course, foreign interests are going to play their part. They're going to bribe. They're going to bring interest. But in the end, the fact of the matter is that these leaders are a representation of us. We are corrupt as a ummah. We're just sitting there blaming these few people when the reality is we sitting there on the ground are corrupt. We have lost that aqidah, that iman, that yaqeen. This is the reality. And it's a very easy scapegoat to just be like the king of this country, the president of this country, and it's his country's fault. And while we're sitting here, all of us in the West, sitting here comfortably while we're just blaming people over there, not thinking that this is something that has to come from the people. When the people change, the governments cannot. You think we can elect an Islamic leader? You think they're going to allow that? Have you not been watching what's been going on in the world? Have you not seen what's going on in Pakistan? In any election that goes on where you're going to elect somebody that is beneficial, then of course there are those people that are, whether it's the military, whether it's the financial institutions who are tied with people outside, whoever it is, are going to take it out. What happened in Egypt earlier when they had their own elections and somebody came in power that people didn't like? What happened in other places? This is something that we're sitting in a world of just throwing blame instead of taking responsibility as a ummah. Look, saying that people praying is not going to make a difference in the condition of the ummah, I'm sorry, this is something that you need to go check your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we have the obedience to the kitab and sunnah, no doubt, when we have our people making salah and zakah, because saying the people who are making salah need to be united, of course, no disagreement with that. But how many people are even making salah? Percentage-wise, I'm not just saying 1 million, 2 million. What I'm talking about from 2 billion Muslims. Go around the Muslim world and go see how many people, and the salah is just one example. It's because it's from the arkan of iman, the highest of ibadat. That's why I used it as an example. When we want to be united, we have to go to that which unites us, the Kitab of Allah, the Sunnah of Rasulullah. Then I'm going to make one more point. I actually have to go for da'wah, as I told Rami, which is when we say the word Salafi, what's a Salafi? This is not some kind of sect that people have made. Maybe some people take it that way, but that's not the meaning. And as I clarified on Dilly's show as well, we as Muslims sitting here, we all agree on the Quran. We believe it's a kalam of Allah. We believe it's the words of Allah. It should be followed. That's what a Salafi believes. We believe in the Prophet ﷺ. We believe that he is the last of the prophets. We believe that his sunnah, his way is better than anybody after him. That's a Salafi. We believe that the Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, radiallahu anhum, and the Sahaba, and those great tabi'un. Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? Do you mind if I finish? Can I finish, please? Respectfully, I let you finish. Do you mind if I finish?
No, please finish. I'm just saying, basically, I want you to answer one
out.
question before. No, there's no problem. You can continue. I'm just saying.
So, Jazakallah khair. Let me finish. Yeah. So, now, when we talk about those that were the best of generations, right? The Sahaba, the Tabi'un, the Taba Tabi'un, the ones who follow the Salihin from them, this is a Salafi, right? And from them, there was khilaf. From them, there were disagreements. That doesn't mean we make takfir on them. That doesn't mean you call them kafir. That doesn't mean, even if I don't agree with an approach of somebody else, that doesn't mean that I don't agree that they're Muslim, unless they do something that does kufr, right? I'm not saying that you have to follow my sheikh. I'm not saying that if you don't follow the shuyukh of my country, you're not Muslim, you're not Salafi. No, those are all misconceptions. But every Muslim should follow the way of the Salaf al-Salihin, the way of the Sahaba, the Tabi'un, and Taba Tabi'un. If you follow Abu Hanifa, if you follow Malik, if you follow Shafi'i, if you follow Ahmad, if you follow those Imma, they were from those generations, right? So this is not like a like this one sect saying don't follow this sect. I know there are people that take it that way, and they're wrong, and I disagree with that. And I've made that clear on Dilly's show as well. I'll let you ask that question before I leave, inshallah.
Well, I forget the question, but anyway, that's why we're trying to have a conversation. But khair, inshallah. So when you say that, basically, when you said that you're blaming the ummah on these governments, this is it's totally rejected. I would reject this fully, akhi. You can't basically say because the ummah, there's certain people in the ummah who have low iman or they're not praying. It's our fault. No, it is the fault of those who are in power. And it is our duty.
Who put them in power?
But hold on, but now at least.
Go ahead.
But who put them in power is the colonialists, the British and the French and the Americans. Who put them in power? Like, why is this like still basically something that's a question? I believe that we as an ummah today, the leaders of the people who are already praying 5 times a day. I didn't say basically we should not basically get people to pray. That's all what I do for life, and that's what you do for life. But the question is, there's people who already are praying. Are they doing their job after the prayers, after they finish their zakat and siyam and their personal duties? We're supposed to be interacting with the military that you talked about. We're supposed to be interacting with the people in power. We're supposed to be interacting with the people of influence and giving them da'wah instead of just giving George and John da'wah. We're supposed to give the people who can actually hold the keys of change in these countries to change, so they can mobilize the resources of the ummah to bring change, right? So we can't just blame Abdullah and Zayd basically for the problems of the whole ummah. No, there's people in power, and those people are responsible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran said they're responsible. How do we basically get them off the hook? I don't understand that. And this is maybe my question for you. How do you basically?
Let me answer the question. He asked me.
Let me just clarify the question.
Go ahead.
How do you get these people off the hook? You know what I'm saying?
Nobody took them off the hook. Hold on. Let me just answer the question. Okay. He asked me a question. Let me answer it.
Sorry.
Nobody took them off the hook. But do you think those colonial powers are sitting in Egypt and in Pakistan and these countries right now? Are they sitting there putting these people in power? Who's the people carrying the guns putting them in power right now?
Who's responsible right now, basically? The ummah.
Who's
for what?
there?
We're not praying?
The ummah. Who's putting them in power right now? Who's standing with their guns and tanks? Is it the British?
It is the people in power, the military itself, the tyrants themselves.
The military. Where did the military come from?
Yeah, Sheikhna, it's not
from another country. They were brought in by the British. They were brought in by the Americans.
So no, the ummah put them there. Basically, is what you're saying.
Thank you.
No, that's not correct. This is even crazy to even say that. These people.
Where did the military come from?
They're installed by the colonialists.
So you're saying. Let me just clarify this.
There's
for
bad
example, the
people. Let
British
me,
or
let me
the
give you
French.
the answer. Let me give you the answer so we don't
Go ahead.
speculate. There's no reason. We're sitting
Go ahead.
with each other. There's no
I'm
speculation
listening.
needed. The people who basically inherited the powers of the colonialists were very bad apples in the ummah. They are the ones who are holding power. What are you going to do about that? It's not as if basically, Zayd and Abdullah say, oh yeah, I approve the evil people to be on top of the military or on top of the government. That doesn't make sense. What we're not doing right, Sheikhna, is basically we're not interacting, giving dawah to some of these people. Every person who's
I think we should.
Every person right now who is let's say lacking iman or is an evildoer from the people in power in the Muslim world could be given dawah and converted to become a better person. But nobody from the mashayikh is making this a priority.
That's not true. That is not true. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You made it
Everyone time out.
We cannot make claims that are not true. I know mashayikh that go visit leaders of countries that give them da'wah. So for you to say nobody's doing that is wrong. You have made a statement against ulama that's wrong. Once again, I agree with you that we
priority. Sheikh, I didn't say they didn't do it. I said priority.
It's their number one priority for some of this issue. It's their number one priority. It's their number one priority. I know those ulama. It's their number one priority. I know ulama that their number one priority is they go and meet with generals, they go and meet with leaders of countries and call them towards unity, towards Quran. I know them personally.
And this
just
is
because they're not making YouTube videos.
Enough.
So for you to say that nobody's doing that is wrong.
Everyone, stop talking. Everyone, take a breath. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We came together because there is a disaster happening that has been happening for a long time. From now on, I have a responsibility to allow or disallow people to jump in, interject. So for now on, inshallah, to be respectful, I will say you speak, your turn. So I want to be fair to everyone. I think there were fair points made, inshallah, on both sides. I want to give listen, my opinion is not qualified. You can all agree, disagree, anything. Your opinions are more valid than mine. And I'm telling you that myself. What I see are almost 2-3 different issues being addressed at the same time from kind of different perspectives. First, I want to make it clear to everyone, no one is saying that giving da'wah to Americans, to white American men who are the hardest people to reach these days, no one's saying that that's not important. No one's saying that establishing salah is not important. No one's saying that following the salaf is not important. Nobody's saying that establishing salah means that we cannot unite as an ummah for the people who have established their salah to call others to unite upon one ummah. No one's saying that we can't politically make moves while teaching people to establish salah and so on and so forth. No one's saying any of these things. What I see is something that feels to be the exact problem we're trying to fight. We started by saying people are bickering and fighting and so on and so forth, disagreeing. And that seems to be exactly what's happening here as well. And it's very disheartening for me to see, because I and I think everybody just wants this to end. So now the question is, how the heck is this going to end? I want to ask a genuine question, inshallah, not to take too much time. Something that stuck with me. Sorry, I do want to mention, Sheikh Uthman, you did tell me that you're going to have to leave soon. So I do want to respect that. I know I started a little bit late, so I want to ask my question quickly, inshallah. And it's actually in regards to something that you mentioned that stuck with me. You mentioned Badr. In the Battle of Badr came through Nasrullah 100%. All victories from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then all things good are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But my question would be, and this is with all due respect, but based on what you're saying, were the Muslims just praying and then the Nasr of Allah came, or what were the steps the Muslims took? Because the Nasr of Allah in that case came because the Muslims fought.
So once again, I'm 100% with making actual action. But the question is, was there anybody in Badr that wasn't making salah? That's the problem that we're not looking at. It's not just salah. I'm not saying, and like I clarified already, I just use salah as an example, right? Because it's one of the arkan of iman, one that many ulama said if you leave it makes you kafir and so on. So the point there being, it's so important from the bodily ibadat, and if the majority of the ummah is not doing it, we have a problem. In Badr, the iman of the Sahaba, this was their greatest weapon. It wasn't that they had the best swords. It's not because they had more numbers, right? When we look at Qadisiyah, the Islamic history is something we should all study. In Qadisiyah, when the Muslims were going and they were going to cross a river under Sa'd ibn Waqqas radiyallahu anhu, they didn't say who's stronger, who's this. They said, has anybody committed a major sin? Pay attention to this. Huh? They asked him, has anybody committed a major sin? Lying is a major sin, backbiting is a major sin, drinking is obviously a major sin, right? And the whole army said no. The whole army said, we have not committed a major sin. So they said, then we will cross over water. This is our history. This isn't fairy tale. This is what happened. The nusra of Allah came in an unseen way to the Sahaba. They weren't even Anbiya. Why? Because they stayed away from sin. Today, we have taken that lightly. When I said about Salah, our brother, like he said, this is ridiculous, right? And I'm telling you, this is our problem. We're looking at this from the aspect of politics only. I'm not against political any involvement of Islamic ideology within the Quran and Sunnah. Of course, we have an Islamic method of governance. We have an Islamic method of how to rule. And I am 100% pro giving nasiha to those leaders and to those military personnel, as Sheikh Mustafa Muhammad was saying. I'm 100% with that. And I know ulama, to say that there are no ulama making it a priority is a lie. And I'm not saying you were lying. I'm saying that because you may not have known about this, because I know ulama personally that this is their number one priority. That's what they do. They're not famous. They're not, but alhamdulillah, they're people of knowledge. They go sit with leaders privately, give them nasiha. They go sit with military leaders. They go sit with kings, and they're making it their priority. And again, that should be done. I agree. But to think that we're still blaming the colonial powers for our situation today is not going to help us. Yes, they ruined a lot of things for us. They put people in power that were dhullam. I realize that. But today, we as a ummah have to wake up and start taking our own responsibilities. Just blaming others is not going to fix it. We have to, if my brother's in the army, if my father's in the army, if I'm in the army, and I get a rule that, hey, go and kill a Muslim, I have to go tell them, look, there is no obedience to the makhluk and disobedience to the khaliq. Don't do it. And when the Muslims stand up and say, you know what, I'm not going to take that order to imprison a alim and torture him, then that's when it's going to stop. Otherwise, getting rid of one tyrant just brings another tyrant. And we've seen this repeatedly in the Muslim world. One revolution comes and brings somebody, they kill Sadat and they get somebody worse. So again, we have to fix the core of the issue. I'm 100% saying that Muslims need to give advice and nasiha and da'wah to our leaders, to our military folks, to our politicians, to unite. I'm with that. But I'm just not going to sit here and say this is Egypt's fault and Jordan's fault and this fault and that fault, knowing that when I've been to those countries, and I haven't been to Egypt, but any other countries in the region, and I've seen the regular people from which the military is recruited and how their obedience to their military orders goes over their obedience to the Quran and what Allah has forbid to harm the Muslim. There is the problem that we're not addressing. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, well,
can I comment a little bit?
Pardon me?
Can I comment a little bit? Because as you said, basically, there's many things that were convoluted together. And I personally got offended, basically, when the blame is put on the ummah. This is unacceptable. I believe, basically, like after decades and decades in the dawah scene, we need to stop this self-inflicted harm, really. I think people need to grow and at their own speed from a perspective, but there's lots of great people who are praying already. My question was to him was, are we mobilizing the believers? Are we mobilizing those who are praying? Are we looking down? Like what I felt is that it's as if somebody, and I'm pretty sure he didn't mean that. But this is how it come across, is that as if like person A or person B, we're pure enough, and most of the ummah is evil. Most of the ummah is dirty with sin. Everybody has sin. Sheikh Uthman has sins. I have sins. Dilly has sins. Everybody has sins. So if we're just there to just count the sins of people, it's problematic. That's number one. Number two is that we need to spread the culture of wanting unity, wanting Islam to be established, wanting the Sharia to basically manage people's lives, wanting one leader to unify the ummah, wanting to remove the oppression and injustices in our countries. If these things are not, if they're not becoming a public demand, then there's an issue. In who? Really, not in the Abdullah and Zaid that are not praying, in the mashayikh, me included. You see what I'm saying? And when I said mashayikh don't prioritize it, he might know a person or two or three or four, but really the majority of it are not really focused on dealing with the influentials. The change happens when we as people of Risala, the people of the message of Islam, interact with the influentials, those who have the keys to change in our countries. And we create, even inshallah, hopefully, like a peaceful change in our countries. Why did for some reason he also spoke about Sadat and killings? I don't know why it always has to be bloody. The Rasul created change in Yathrib. Nobody got slapped on their face. It was a peaceful change. The people in power, the stakeholders in Yathrib became Muslim. They changed from kufr to iman. We have people who have actually are Muslim. They might be sinners, oppressors, evildoers in our countries. If we reach to these people and we change them, things will change naturally. There's no need to push and shove. You know, see what I'm saying? But this culture, this type of speech is not there. It's not there. And then, if he was here, I would have loved him to challenge me on that. And but I don't want to take too much time. Really, I want Dilly to also pitch in and so forth.
So when Rami invited me onto this podcast, I thought the conversation was going to be about Gaza. I think for the viewers and listeners, obviously as a fellow podcaster, Rami, this has become a conversation about solutions ultimately, right? Because from the vibe that I got from Sheikh Usta, please correct me if I'm wrong, Usta, just interject straight, cut me if I misrepresent you, is that, look, Gaza's, because I asked the question, how is it different, right? And the reason why I asked that perhaps was because of the nature of the operation of the Palestinian resistance and the way in which Israel and its Western allies have responded. That's what I meant. But if you were to ask me, is it different in the sense that is this going to be the last incident? Of course not. I absolutely expect it's not the first time that Gaza is going to be attacked and besieged and bombed and bombarded. So since we're talking about solutions, Sheikh Usta, and if Sheikh Uthman was here, what I would have asked is, so how does this look like? Are you saying that any type of intervention, military intervention, let's say if Erdogan, we're talking purely hypothetical, because there's thousands of people, tens and thousands, if not millions, on the streets of Karachi, of Islamabad, of Dhaka, of Istanbul, of Amman, in all these capitals, and they are calling upon the rulers. They are calling upon the armies. They are trying to cross the borders. We saw it in Jordan. They got tear gas. We saw the Lebanese. They were getting tear gas. People wanted to cross the borders. We had the Olympic Committee spokesman in Kabul and the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan said that let the Arab rulers give us way. We will show the Arabs how to fight. You just watch us fight. So we know the sentiment is there, Sheikh Usta, yeah? What I'm positing to you is, does it have to be an Islamic polity to do that, or is some level of relief, even from the existing nation states, militarily intervene or opening their borders up? Surely that is something. I'm just trying to think of how things look practically, Sheikh Usta. That's what
you know me basically from 20 years. That basically I'm a person who basically understand politics very well, and the regional and the global. So, and that's why I'm trying to basically answer your question. What's happening right now is, unfortunately, there is a synchronization. The Egyptian regime is always in contact with the American regime. The Iranian regime is always in contact with the American regime. So the government in Gaza is at the end of the day, basically, is synced up with the Iranians. The Iranians had to give a green light for any operations to happen. And that means basically these countries are actually playing together against the Muslimin in Palestine. And that's why I'm trying to say
Hamas into that bracket as well.
Definitely, without a doubt. I mean, like they don't hide that they are subservient to the Iranians. The Iranians basically are the mothership for these movements, and the Iranians basically move them and stop them whenever they want. You see what I'm saying? So us basically thinking that the regimes are going to make a move. This is it's a naive dream that we should basically educate the ummah that it will never happen. Real change will happen only when the people in power in the Muslim world change their hearts and minds. This is what we want. We want basically da'wah to the influentials. We want people to basically fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave them positions of power over others, and be just. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He spoke to Dawood alayhi salam in the Quran, he was on top. He was the king of his kingdom, basically of Israel at that time, I guess, or Judah. قلتم يا داود إنا جعلناك خليفة في الأرض فاحكم بين الناس بالحق. So, oh Dawood, we've made you a Khalifa, we've made you a caretaker, we've made you the leader of the believers of that time. So make sure you rule with justice and rule basically with what's right. So this is the issue. None of these regimes will move. Anybody who expects that, maybe is a little bit more optimistic, I guess.
Is it not the same regime that we're seeking Nusra from? Is it not the same regime that would be? When I mean regimes, I'm talking about the army, the generals, the colonels, the lieutenants. It's still the same infrastructure that we're appealing
to.
to.
There's no problem. We can ask them. We can demand that they should basically move and save our people, definitely, and defend our people and defend the honor and defend the land. That's fine. The thing is, basically, do that. It'll be like, why aren't we doing it on a consistent basis? Like this should be a demand in the ummah. What we need to do is to cultivate this call in the ummah that the ummah must get to a level that 2 billion. At the public opinion, not every single person is going to basically hold that, but in general, the ummah must basically dream about a better tomorrow where they basically have Islam and the justice of Islam and the peace of Islam ruling their world and ruling their society. You see what I'm saying? And that doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen basically by a call on social media to these people. There has to be da'wah, there has to be human interaction. Mus'ab bin Umair radiallahu anhu, when he was sent by the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Yathrib, he went and sat down with Sa'd bin Mu'adh, who was the leader of the Aus. He sat down with Sa'd bin Ubadah, who was the leader of the Khazraj. He sat down with Usayd ibn Hudayr, who was the second man in command of the Aus. He built a relationship, he gave them da'wah, they changed their hearts and minds, they became a Muslim, and then once the people of influence became on the side of the haqq, things changed, the rules changed, justice became the norm in Yathrib, and then it became, the Rasul was invited to come and become the de facto ruler and ruled by the justice of La ilaha illallah, and things was peaceful. Like this is the vision that we need to give our ummah, that we need to interact. Dilly, yourself, you're from Bangladesh. You might have a second cousin who's married to somebody who's basically is in touch with like an influential businessman, an influential, let's say, I don't know, a professor or a person in the agricultural department. We need to give da'wah. We need to give da'wah not just basically for people to pray and secularize Islam. We're having a conference basically in the next few days. The theme is desecularizing the Muslim mind. The Muslim should stop seeing Islam as something personal and something that's ritualistic in nature only. We need to understand that we need to live our life with this justice. We need to live our life with the divine guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we're giving da'wah, even if I see a person praying, we need to give him da'wah. Does he have this vision? Does he have this dream?
With that brief engagement you just had with Sheikh Uthman, was that the first time you publicly engaged with him, with Sheikh Uthman?
The first time, basically, yeah, first time, basically, publicly.
Purely based on that engagement and what he shared with you, do you feel like that was somewhat of a secularized type of da'wah?
From his side of the story, yes, unfortunately.
Okay. So Rami, as a Palestinian, my brother, you've sat there and you kicked off today's podcast by basically saying the first recollection you had was watching videos of your people getting slaughtered, right? Or bombs raining in on them, right?
Yeah.
You hosted this podcast. You've got a journalist / activist. You've got Sheikh Usta, who clearly comes from a particular revivalist mindset. Would that be fair to say, Sheikh Usta?
Yeah, definitely.
And then you have Sheikh Uthman, who's obviously not here, a da'iyah from a particular persuasion, which focuses on self-reformation and links it to revival, right? As a Palestinian, how does that feel, bro? And how does it feel that Hamas, Sheikh Usta basically said that ultimately they are Iranian pawns, in short? How do you, as a Palestinian, as a host of this podcast, how do you feel about that?
First and foremost, I don't care much about Hamas. I care about Palestinians, and I've heard a lot and seen a lot personally that might look like some of their people are good, some of their people are bad, some of their people follow Islam, some people don't follow Islam. Overall, the politics that deep are over my head. Personally, I just care about my people. My people are suffering right now. There are deep-rooted reasons why they're suffering, and all these things need to be addressed. How did we actually, subhanAllah, there are so many things I had planned for this I want to discuss. One of them being how the heck did we get to the situation to begin with? People are acting like they just invaded a few days ago because everyone. It's like that's not the case. They were in a strip. 2+ million people were in a strip of land fenced up. You can look up and see the fences where the width of it is 6 miles. That's like 7 kilometers or something. If you're
6 by 30, isn't it? It's about 6
by
miles
25, even worse. 6 by 25.
6 by 25.
And that's if you take like the longer end of it, because it goes like this in a bit as you get farther up. So 6 miles, 5 miles by 25 miles. That's 150-ish square miles to keep 2 million people, half of which are children, half of whom are children, with cuts to electricity. 95% of the water is undrinkable. All of this stuff is going on. That's why this has erupted. That's why Qatar, Iran, of course. That's why Saudi. That is why I have a list here. Many student organizations at different universities, Harvard, some people at Harvard put out a letter basically blaming Israel for what happened. But let's look at what that actually means. There's been a 75-year-long apartheid and reign. And where did that come from? I think is an important question. I think that every single aspect that every one of you mentioned is important. I don't think it's helpful to focus on one aspect or refuting one point rather than just bringing all of these points together that we can all agree on generally, at least, and then making practical solutions.
Yeah.
Well, look,
can I maybe interject with one thing? If you,
so I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to give you what we call in England. I'm going to give you an underarm. I'm going to lay it onto you. When I started my first opening, I did say that depending on how far you want to go back, we can literally take it back to World War I. We could take it back to Khalifa Abdul Hamid, rahimahullah's time. We can. If we really want to, we can take it back all the way over Theodore Herzl, try-making deals with Khalifa Abdul Hamid about selling land for the birth of a Zionist state for the Jewish people. And then we could talk about the defeat of the Ottomans and the treachery and the betrayal that they had in World War I. We could talk about the various treaties that came out that led to the British Mandate. I mentioned all of these things so people just have a snapshot of the history, of the chronology. And it's interesting that we got Sheikh Usta here, who is of an Islamic revivalist mindset, because he would actually link those historical events back to the solution that he's proposing. Am I correct, Sheikh Usta?
Oh, 100%, without doubt.
So I guess the reason why I asked you, Rami, my dear brother, is because, wallahi, you know, when you see the ummah suffering, it hurts, bruv. It hurts. When that part of the ummah that's suffering happens to be your people, your homeland, your motherland, it hurts just a little bit more. I don't care what anyone says, it just hurts a little bit more because it's right close to home. The way you feel about the Palestinian situation, of course, on principle, is the same as the Uyghur situation, but it feels closer to home because there's a history there, right? So I guess what I want to ask Sheikh Usta is this, yeah? I don't believe any sane Muslim who believes in Allah, the Messenger, and the final day, and has ghayra for Islam and the Ummah, wouldn't want some level of, it may vary in a spectrum, but some level of intervention for the sake of Allah. Here are our brothers and sisters, 2 million, of which half are under 18, in a 26-mile by 5-mile strip, open-air prison, blockaded. Ya Allah, Ya Ummati, give them some respite. Someone do something, right? I guess what I'm merely asking you, Sheikh, and the reason why is because I just want the views to, I don't want people to go away and think, okay, well, in theory, that sounds good. In theory, we want that. In theory, the Ummah is crying out for it. How does that look like? Yani, in practical terms, how does that look like? What does this entail? Does that mean we don't call upon the existing structures and the existing regimes to do something, because it could bring some immediate respite? Them expelling ambassadors could bring some respite. Them cutting some trade deals may bring some respite. Do you know what I'm trying to say, Sheikh? As opposed to, 100%. Always an all or nothing situation. I'm just trying.
No. It's not all of it. No, I think basically every push from our ummah, the ummah needs to basically protest day and night, and push these basically people who have made the wrong choices. And the only reason I'm saying speaking like that, basically not carefully, respectfully, is really I hope one day some of them will change sides to the sides of haqq. But we have to definitely, like, whether it's economic embargoes, or is it basically, as you said, basically expelling the diplomats, 100%, without a doubt, these things needs to happen. But is it going to resolve the issue? Again, that I'm a political analyst. The issue is that, unfortunately, I don't expect them to do so, and they're going to repress their own people. And you already mentioned basically what Jordan's doing to its own people, who really they're just protesting, and they're basically using tear gas against them. So that's why we should do as much as we can. But we need to basically be also realistic that it's not going to solve the problem. And the solution, you see, what brought us here today, akhi, is 200 years of decline. Yeah, Khalifa Abdul Hamid, rahimahullah, most people maybe don't know. Khalifa Abdul Hamid, the second, rahimahullah, was the last Khalifa really we had. And the way he was basically, the way basically was taken out through a coup. He was ousted by liberal movements that were cultivated by Western powers in our lands. That's the last real Khalifa we had. In 1909, basically, that's when Islam ceased to exist in a practical sense within government structure. The Khilafah al-Uthmaniyya was gone. So today, basically, we need to understand that we need to rebuild our spirit. We need to rebuild our civilization, and that happens basically when both the public wants something and the people in power want the same thing, and they align together. That's basically when civilization becomes a reality. When the people in Medina, in Yathrib, was called Yathrib first, who started becoming Muslim, and they became Muslim basically bit by bit, more and more and more. But until the leaders of Al-Aws wal-Khazraj aligned with the public in Yathrib, until then, that's when progress, that's when basically Nahda, that's when basically society changed. So today, our role as again journalists and leaders and analysts and shuyukh and imams is to cultivate this dream and this demand within the ummah of Islam. And within the Ummah of Islam, there's people who are stakeholders, or people who are of influence. Bit by bit, inshallah ta'ala, both will align the public opinion of the Ummah and the people in power, and we will basically, have our deen preserved, implemented, and safeguarded. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not denying any short-term things that we can do. Anything that we can do, like with France, basically the abaya. You want to stop buying French goods? I'm for it, akhi. You want to do a protest against the French embassy? I'm for it with you. The Chinese embassy, I'm with you. The Indian embassy, let's do it. But it's very important to basically, what I always tell my students, and I'm saying it here, basically, we should put 80% of our time into the real solution, the long-term solution, and 20% of our time into the short-term gains that we can basically relieve some suffering and pain, without a doubt. Definitely, 100%. And this needs to be the norm, because everybody, the ownership of Islam, the feeling of responsibility is low in the ummah. It's not about people who pray. That's why to be honest, I was offended when he said that. May Allah bless him and reward him. And we tried. Like, it's not as if I'm perfect. I'm not perfect either. May Allah bless him and bless all the imams that serve the community and day and night. But if I'm going to remind you basically of something, that Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, one of the battles of Islam, basically early on, there was one Muslim who was an alcoholic. Yeah, he was serving. He was there. He didn't tell him, "Khalas, you're alcoholic. You're out." He gave him one chance, two chances, and then basically he stopped him as a punishment. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, basically, people who don't pray, I don't want to look down upon them. There's sisters without hijab that are protesting, that are basically defending their ummah. Maybe their personal journey right now is they couldn't basically obey this command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they have lots of other good qualities. I'm not approving, basically, I'm not saying that the hijab is not fard. The hijab is fard. The prayer is fard. But there's some people who basically maybe don't pray. They don't pray consistently. Some our sisters, their hijab might not be this. Some of our brothers basically that might have some like haram income. But let's stop looking down upon people. We're not perfect either. This is why I was offended a little bit, to be honest. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. I apologize even on air right now for cutting him off a couple of times. May Allah bless him subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is what I was offended. The ummah, we needs to be respected. Nobody should speak as if they are pure angel or a saint. We're all mistake makers. We're all sinners. But we need to desecularize the Muslim mind and make the demand of establishing the deen and demand of protecting our honor and dignity and our lands to be a public demand of the ummah from Indonesia to Morocco. Period.
How does that fall in line with the fact that this particular incident in the last week, we've seen audacious, outrageous, blatant lies about 40 beheaded babies, 260 ravers killed. We've basically seen a full war propaganda machine of the corporate media lying at the back of the tea. We had the Sunday Times in the UK, one of the most leading broadsheets, running a story about mutilated Israeli babies but had Gazan kids on the picture. We had journalists backtracking saying that, look, we weren't sure, we've not seen no bodies, there's been no confirmation, and so forth. So the Western media war machine has been drumming the beats of war, which kind of justified or contextualized the genocide and the imminent ground invasion that we're about to witness, which basically on the Western psyche, these crazy Muslims who behead babies and mutilate kids and kill our party goers, they deserve to be carpet bombed. So they've conditioned their people to basically either defend, justify, understand, appreciate whatever it is that the war crimes are about to take place.
So I'll tell you basically the political analysis. My political analysis is in this situation. So okay. So right now, all the Western media machine at the end of the day is synchronized, and as you said, basically is dehumanizing the Palestinians, right? And they're not only that, they're even stirring up the public opinion in Israel for blood and blood and blood. Okay, why is this happening? What's happening is the United States, and it's public there, it's not as if there are secrets. The United States want the normalization between the Arab regimes and Israel, right? So because of this normalization, they need to basically create a solution for the Palestinians. This Palestinian issue is an obstacle for the American reorganization of the Middle East. All right, and how do you solve it? Well, you get both sides to sit on the table, negotiate some solution, fair or not. Definitely, it's not going to be for the Muslimin, but at least both needs to sign it, and it has to be consumable, by both the Israeli public and the Palestinian public. That's why both sides have not been able to reach an agreement. Both
so
do not.
We're seeing the beginning, the cursory stages of what could potentially be the two-state solution.
This is what the Americans could be pushing for, and that's why what's happening right now is one of two things: either basically the Americans mobilizing the Western media to push the Netanyahu to make a big blunder, and then force him to basically accept certain. As Mohammed bin Salman said, look, we're up for normalization, but the Zionist entity needs to basically give some rights to the Palestinians. This could be it. The Americans could basically be doing all this drum rolling to put Netanyahu in a very bad spot where he will have to accept certain conditions, and both sides basically kind of resolve the issue and have a two-state solution. Because the one who is resisting this two-state solution for the last 70 years is the Israeli side, not the Palestinian side, really. And that's a sad story, because and that's why the PLO was created in the first place, to betray and deceive the Palestinians. The second option, and I want you to be careful about this one, okay, very careful. The second option is basically say, khalas, like the Israelis, Netanyahu has certain demands. He's now basically allied with the far right in the Zionist entity. We cannot basically push them to accept certain conditions. So we just need to go and smash the weaker side, and prepare the public opinion of the world for Netanyahu to go smash them fully, do a grand genocide in Gaza. So
force
basically,
them to Sinai, or force them into Egypt.
Force them, exactly. But see, Egyptians don't want that. But so as you can see, basically there's mixed interests here, basically. But at the end of the day, they want to make the Palestinians go on their knees and khalas, accept basically the conditions by the Netanyahu government, and create a solution that can bring about the normalization. Now, the second option is very scary from a Palestinian perspective.
It is.
And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all the Muslimin. But there's no third outcome, akhi. These, like the only third outcome is basically if both fail, and then both sides disengage and they go back to square one, yani, which is so these are the three political options. There's no fourth, and it's all sad story. The option one is sad, option two is sad, and if there's a deadlock, it's go back to the sad past reality, really.
Rami, where's your family from in Palestine, bro? Where's the actual village or town? Where are you originally from in Palestine? Your heritage?
Yeah, Tulkarm.
Okay. And is that modern day occupied land, or is it full in Gaza, West Bank? Sorry, I'm not great with the geography of Palestine.
No worries. It's close to, I don't know if it's close to Gaza. I don't know if it's included in the 5x25 border, but it's close, so it could be occupied.
And what's the vibe you're getting from like family in terms of like solutions, what they feel should be done? Because every family has a cry. Every family has a mother or a father or an uncle or a brother who will watch, consume news, and their true feelings will come out. What's the vibe you're getting from family members in terms of what they're seeing?
Well, I've heard a mixed response, and not just from my immediate family, but family, friends, and people who I speak to who have been there, who are on the ground, and it's not any surprise because half the people agree with what HAMAS is doing, and the other half don't agree with them necessarily. But the truth of the matter is, they don't have any alternative. So everyone in some capacity is like, well, this is what kind of needed to happen. What did anyone expect? We were literally left here in a what I'm going to say is a camp that is concentrated. You can put those words together, flip them, you'll know what I'm saying. As many even officials, many professionals, experts in the field have deemed it as such, according to the actual definition. So I've heard mixed responses, but some people are very supportive of what happened, and they see it as a blatant necessity given the circumstances, and other people are a bit more reserved. They're not exactly happy about it, but they understand that they tried being peaceful back in 2018 when they organized that march, and they were met with bullets given to them and to journalists and to medics. As UN reported, Israel was actually targeting these people. So they tried being peaceful, it didn't work, and they were on the brink of extinction in that area.
Sheikh Usta, I'm going to say this, and Rami, I have to say this as well, because just in case our critics and our regulators in the UK pick this interview up, because they're always watching our stuff, that this conversation that we've had, it's not about support for Hamas or any prescribed terrorist group. However, I will say that under international law, oppressed and occupied people have a right to violently resist occupation. That's under the Protocol 1 of the Geneva Convention. So let's forget about the Islamic ruling or obligation of what an occupied people are allowed to do and should do and what are allowed to do and what the responsibility falls in the people within their vicinity. Anyone watching this needs to understand, which is yet another reflection of the double standards and the hypocrisy of what's known as international law, is that it is enshrined in international law, the UN Geneva Conventions, that any occupied people or national liberation movements have the right, the inalienable right, to defend themselves against an invading or occupying force. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, Beta Salem have basically said that Israel is an apartheid state. Sheikh, given that Palestinians have a right to violently resist occupation, however, whenever they do, in small pockets, they're labeled terrorists, they're criminalized, they're dehumanized, though they have the right to do so under international law. I have to leave in 5-10 minutes, but I want to ask you this. We're seeing millions of people protesting around the world, even in Western capitals, right? London, just yesterday, 150,000 people. There were as many non-Muslims as there were Muslims. However, because the Palestine Solidarity movement is nearly entirely dominated by socialists and left-leaning non-Muslims, the kind of people who lionize Yasser Arafat and Gaddafi and Saddam and under the kind of anti-imperialist umbrella, right? You know what I'm talking about, Sheikh Usta, Rami? The persuasion of those people who are anti-imperialists, but like socialists and left-leaning. So these guys, as well-meaning as they may be, because they're a spectrum in and of themselves, that many of them are atheists, many of them are pro-LGBTQ, but when it comes to these issues, they're very, very close to Palestine and Palestine solidarity and so forth. And they dominate, at least in the UK, they dominate the student activism for Palestine on campuses. My last question or proposition to both of you, Rami, because perhaps it's a generational thing, Sheikh Usta, from a point of view of your students and the shabab that you speak to. When we attend protests and we attend these solidarity gatherings, there is an argument that says that, look, let's garner as much non-Muslim and mainstream support as we can, because this helps the Palestinian cause. It humanizes them. People understand that this is injustice and oppression that's taking place. So in fact, we need to make alliances with people who are willing to do so, and that happens to be the left-leaning socialists and the anti-imperialists and so forth. Same guys would line as us as well. I'm not saying they all would, but I'm saying there's elements within that spectrum of the left who are very pro-Palestine. So I guess what I'm going to wrap up and what I'm going to propose is, how do we overcome the strategic thinking of let's garner as much non-Muslim support as we can to make the Palestinian cause, to raise more awareness about it and give it more mainstream exposure, versus, hold on here, this is, at least from a Muslim point of view, this is specifically an Islamic issue with an Islamic solution, and it's only Muslims that will ever liberate it. So when you go to these protests and say, free, free Gaza, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. When you're talking about that, for the Muslim, when he's thinking from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that looks like something very different to Michelle and Bob, who have come, who are. So I guess what I'm positing to is, how do we reconcile a strategic thinking of try and make as many alliances with people who will help us advance the Palestinian cause in terms of raising awareness about their plight, versus Muslims who hear stories of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Saif Qutuz, the last Ottomans who defended Jerusalem, and these kinds of. How do you marry the two? Because in the West, at least, there's a major overlap between the left, who are proposing those kind of ideas of solidarity, of international law, of sanctions and boycott, and so the BDS being one such. And then you've got Muslims who want to see a more Islamic solution, whether that be the revivalist thinking of Sheikh Usta or something else. How do we reconcile those two things? That's my last question. I'm posing to you, Rami, because it's the generational thing, bro. Because we're like, it's more of a younger flex when you go to like MSAs and ISOCs and unis, and you hear people talk about that. And Sheikh Usta, from the perspective of how do you deal with that with the shabab of your community?
Well, I guess to try and make my answer as brief as possible, I think the most important thing is when we engage with these people, we make it clear what our stance is, and we explain to them why. We explain to them why this is the most humane stance. That if you actually, like, listen, you have your own ideological beliefs, we have our ideological beliefs. Let's pit them side by side and discuss practically and ideologically in a principled manner which is better and why. What can we agree on, disagree on? If you value human rights, what defines that? What is human rights? Does it come from humans? Does it come from God? All this stuff. And at the end of the day, it's important that we don't waver in our belief just because we're getting support from them on this particular issue. Because let's say Gaza, inshallah, and Palestine does become free. You asked a very good question. You made a very good point. What exactly does that look like? Because I think a lot of people are saying, okay, it'll just basically, like, there'll be Israeli citizens all of a sudden, and there's basically no more Palestine, which that's not what Israel wants. They seem to want to have only Israelis there and no Philistines, which is a problem in and of itself. But for Muslims, what that means is, well, listen, 1947, there was Palestine. There was no real problem. There's no Israel. 1948, there's Israel and there's Palestine, and there's a huge issue. So exactly. So you can see that under the Philistini rule, there was Palestinian Jews, and they were called Palestinian Jews, had Palestinian passports, and Palestinians did not regard them as lesser people or individuals. They were just and this is something repeated in that land throughout history. Umar radiallahu anhu, when he conquered Jerusalem, he asked, where are the Jews? And the Romans said, we offed all of them. So he sent a Jewish revert to Islam, a Sahabi, to go get 80 Jewish families and bring them into the Holy Land. So Muslims, Philistines don't have a problem with, governing our society in a fair manner, but clearly Israel as a nation has a very distinct problem with that. And I think that is the most important thing that we can establish. And I apologize for a long answer. I know you need to go, and Allah Sheikh Usta, inshallah, give his.
So my answer is going to be very specific. I'd say that the reason our youngsters and our activists and the people who really care and have a soft heart for humanity and the ummah, the reason basically they're pursuing these channels of a solution is because we, as Islamic educators and Muslim scholars and imams, didn't give them the right solution. And we didn't give them the right political awareness. So their thinking was within a specific box, which is the box of Western activism, and therefore basically said, well, look, if we need to rally, if we need to basically press and lobby, we need more people. Therefore, we need the non-Muslims with us on our side. Now, there's no problem with that as long as basically the labels and the slogans is specifically Islamic, right? But this is not the issue. The issue is basically giving them a vision, giving them a dream, helping them to think outside the box, that there is a real solution. Yeah, it might take a little bit more time. Yes, it might need a little bit more effort, but it needs a different way of thinking. We have an ummah of 2 billion out of 8 billion people. and the Muslimin are supposed to be allies of one another. The believing men and the believing women are supposed to be supporters, partners, guardians of one another. So you say protectors of one another. We left that basically for international law that we know basically is a hoax. International law is a hoax. The United Nations is a hoax. The whole international system is a hoax. And we need to say this. We don't teach this basically everywhere.
When you say hoax, are you saying hoax in terms of
it's a fraud.
But a hoax for the Muslims to have hope in? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, no. The system is in disguise. It promises basically justice. It promises human rights. It promises many things, but they don't apply for Muslims. But look at it in France. Basically, people can't wear whatever they want.
No, because a non-Muslim French or Brit might be watching this. But hold on, the UN's great for us. The EU's great for us.
Great for them, definitely.
NATO's fantastic for us. So I just want to, before I leave, one last
let
question.
me sorry, I was going to say something else. You asked me a couple of things, right? Number one is basically
it was basically what I was asking about. How do you reconcile the strategic thinking of allying with those whose solutions are clearly not Islamic, but they mean well, and just to raise awareness and to raise the profile of the Palestinian cause, versus Muslims who want a specific Islamic solution, desire something different? How do you explain to a left-leaning Palestine solidarity campaigner about the sanctity of Masjid al-Aqsa? Okay, fine, they'll understand.
This is what I was trying to answer this second part, right? So the first part is that the reason they're pursuing it is because they're limited within a specific parameter of thinking. The number two is that no, we do not need anybody. We just need ourselves. Muslims need to rely upon one another, and they need to start thinking that look. The Muslim Ummah is great. The Muslim Ummah is the most resourceful Ummah. The Muslim Ummah is the most youthful Ummah. The youth bulge in the world is within the Muslim world. See, Africa and Middle East and Southeast Asia, that's basically where the youth bulge is. Many economists and political strategists have said 70% of the natural resources of the planet, it's not oil and gas, the 70% of natural resources lie within the greater Middle East, or what they call the greater Middle East. So we are a very resourceful ummah. We have a unified aqidah. We have a unified, even in the Arabic languages, unifies us from a linguistic perspective. We have the most youthful, population on the planet. We have all the elements to be a great nation, a great civilization. What we are missing is two things. Number one, a unifying vision based upon our aqidah, and that creates public opinion, and then a leadership that can basically lead the ummah to get there, to build that, and to make the dream happen. This is what we're missing, and this is what we need to be calling for day in, day out.
Rami Habibi, I love you to bits. You're so gorgeous. Thank you for inviting me on. May Allah bless you, your people. May Allah give victory to the Muslims in all occupied lands. Replace whatever we have with something better that will rule with the security and the justice of Islam. I mean, last question before I go. I don't want to hear, you can answer it, but I'm going. Some would say, Sheikh Usta, you've been unfair on the Palestinian resistance. You would say that these are a people who are under siege, they're occupied, and just to write them off as Iranian agents would be unfair. Please answer this question. I love you for the sake of Allah. We'll speak to you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you. Inshallah, I'll visit you soon in the UK.
Okay.
You can listen to my answer later, inshallah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to listen to it.
Allah barak definitely, basically, the word agent is I don't think it's something I used, but the word agency or agent in politics has a specific meaning. Doesn't mean traitors, doesn't mean people who betray their cause or the cause of their people. I believe at the end of the day, the people of Gaza were given one choice, to be supported by this Iranian regime. I believe the Iranian regime is the biggest threat in the Middle East. Actually, it is the biggest threat in the Middle East because they will always ally themselves to Western nations against the majority of the Muslims, which are Sunni. It's really a racist regime from a perspective of sectarianism. It's a regime that wants to, by force, occupy the 85% of the Muslims which are Sunni, and have a racist policy, and have almost like a genocide temptations. Really, they would kill everybody if they can. So definitely Iran is not a regime that is right now. Basically, who's doing most of the killing of the Syrian civilians in Syria? It is Iranian-backed militias.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying? Who killed so many people in Iraq? It was Iranian-backed militias. Who is wreaking havoc in multiple places, basically in Yemen? Is the Iranian regime. So definitely the word agency is not the something that is negative, meaning traitors or whatever. But unfortunately, they have no means except to hang to this Iranian regime. I don't think this is the right thing to do personally. So I do basically say no. We should not basically rely on such oppressors in such a regime, and we should rely on Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Allah will make a way out for everybody. You see what I'm saying? Like it's so let's keep it there for now.
yeah. Jazakallah khair. I wish Brother Dilly was here to follow up as he has been with the very good questions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless everyone who joined us today, alhamdulillah. It is a lot to unpack, to uncover, to discuss. There were a lot of things I wanted to discuss that unfortunately didn't get the time to, but inshallah, maybe afterwards I'll just go through a few of the facts for the audience to know. But where do you see this issue going in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Well, ya akhi, it's gonna be a sad answer, right? And maybe we can finalize with this one for tonight. Is that if the Ummah of Islam doesn't change, and what is the change I'm today requesting this Ummah to go through, is to desecularize their view of Islam. Islam is not just about rituals, and you can be a secular Muslim who can live their lives as wish. No, there are certain values that we stick to. There's certain aspiration that we have, and there's specific vision for the collective people of the 2 billion nation, right? So if this is not going to change, unfortunately, nothing's going to change in our lands, and but we've already basically spent 75 years in such a mess, and it could continue for a long time. So my advice is for Muslims to start demanding from their imams, from their teachers, from their instructors, demand real solutions. What is the solution? How can we, as an ummah, basically regain our dignity? How can we remove the humiliation that we've been living in for the last over 100 years, unfortunately? Yeah. We were occupied in World War One. The Muslim body was cut into pieces. It was gifted to France and Russia and Britain and the Netherlands and Italy and so forth. And we have not recovered yet. And it is time for us to have an aspiration to have liberation of our lands and to have our own independent political destiny. And that's part of basically also, if Dilly was here, he would have said this part of the Human Rights Code for the United Nations is for people to have the right to self-determination. Why aren't we speaking about the right of self-determination of the Muslimin? Not from a UN context, but even then, basically, as he said, like if you want to discuss with non-Muslims, we must have the right of self-determination from Indonesia to Morocco. We're one ummah, we're one brotherhood, we're one family. We want to live together. We want to, we don't want these borders. We hate these borders. Just like the Americans, and I really respect the American Revolution from that perspective, because, it unified 50 states together. They're not, Virginians and so forth. They are Americans. 50 countries came together. Each state is like way bigger than many countries in the world.
Yeah.
They unified. They created the United States of America. People now say, people are proud, whether they're from Texas or Vermont or California. I'm American. Why can't we say I'm a Muslim? I don't want to be Pakistani and Egyptian. I could have, yeah, my province is Pakistan. My province is Egypt. But why can't we be Muslim and have a Islamic unity that creates a prosperous economy, that creates peace and harmony, that preserves people's rights, that allows basically Christians and Jews and Muslims and other religions to basically live in peace and justice within the Islamic world, like they've done for the last for the last 13 years before World War One. So this is the aspiration, this is the dream that we want, and this is what we need to cultivate in every Muslim mind, in the world.
100%, inshallah. And on that note, I was going to mention before, but I forgot. Whenever you hear the word revolution, you have to think of violence. I don't know of any. I'm not like an expert on revolutions, but are there really revolutions that are non-violent, that are purely like debated and just discussed, and then they khalas, that was it? Because a lot of the greatest ones, at least, there was a lot of bloodshed, fighting.
Like the French Revolution was super bloody. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
that's why the French Revolution have led to just dictatorship and blood and monsters, basically.
Yeah,
Napoleon was monster. All the different French emperors were monsters. Even today, you have a monster basically at the head of the French state, basically denying the right of our Muslim sisters to even wear a abaya or hijab or a niqab. That's a monster. But at the end of the day, and memorize this, that the revolution that we aspire for is the prophetic revolution, which was super peaceful and super transparent. Basically, Rasul ﷺ led a revolution in Yathrib, converted it to a society of justice and peace for everybody, where people's dignities and honors were protected. That revolution had 0 drops of blood. This is our example, and this is the only example we have. We don't have any other example. We don't follow the American Revolution. We don't follow the French Revolution. We don't follow the Bolshevik Revolution. We don't follow even the British Revolution of 1688. We follow the Rasul's revolution, which is intellectual. It's about conviction. It's about da'wah. It's about peaceful change of society, from a society that has lots of sins and lots of injustice to a society that has lots of goodness and justice for everybody.
100%. Barakallah feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you immensely. It reminds me of something I heard when I was listening to a podcast that featured Norman Finkelstein. He is a pro-Palestinian Jewish man whose family was actually in, I don't want to get anything demonetized or taken down, but Germany during World War II is all I'll say. And he's very, very sympathetic with the Palestinian cause, and it's a cause that's very close to his heart. And on the show, they mentioned when slaves revolt, they're freedom fighters. They're fighting for their life and their freedom. But when Palestinians do that, they are the T word, and they are barbaric, and they are all these words that I can't say because the thing might get taken down. But when they look at the American Revolution and the French Revolution, and when Europe became secular and that huge revolution that took place then, they look at these things as amazing things, that these were victories. Obviously, in the moment, it's bloody, it's harsh, it's scary, it's bad. But for some reason, they look at these things as, wow, that was amazing. But now when it's happening in real time, when Muslims doing it, fighting for their literal lives, Palestinians or Philistines fighting for their literal lives, it's splashed on the media as something that is atrocious. So
yeah,
I think that's horrible. But you made a good point, alhamdulillah, an amazing point. I think probably the most important point that we should focus on, which is establishing Islam as human beings, as people, as followers of the Prophet ﷺ in the way that he did, and using the methods that he did, and trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will unite us and allow us to unite under his deen, so long as we are sincere and so long as we enjoin good and forbid evil, as he says. I actually have the ayah open here. I think you know which one I'm going to quote, Sheikh. Here, let there be a group among you who calls each other to goodness, encourage what is good and forbid what is evil. It is they who will be successful. The rest of the surah is very beautiful. Please go read it. Surah Al-Imran, verse 104 in that area. So, Jazakallah khair for joining me, Sheikh. Do you have any final words for the people?
Allah barak fikum. No, Allah barak fikum. Allah bless you. Really, my final word for the whole Muslimin is that deen is not just rituals. The rituals are the foundation. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Bunya al-Islamu ala khams." Meaning Islam, as a building, as a structure, rested upon a foundation of 5 pillars. So the pillars and the rituals are the foundation of the deen. It's not the whole deen. But they're the most important. Definitely, they are the most important. That's why take care of your salah. If you want to basically give da'wah, you have to do qiyam al-layl. Otherwise, don't call yourself a da'wah carrier if you don't do qiyam al-layl. This is one of my least principles that I teach my students. If you want to do da'wah, if you want to carry the da'wah, you have to do not just five daily prayers. You have to do lots of hours of prayers during the night, every single day, of the whole year. So يعني may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يعني help us to understand the deen better and understand that it is a way of life, it's a system of life, it's something that is a mission and a dream that we need to live by, and it's not just something that's personal. And I'd like to remind the brothers and sisters in Canada that we have Muhammad Hijab coming inshallah ta'ala next week, and we have a big conference on the 21st in the city of Toronto, specifically in Mississauga. So I hope everybody purchased the tickets. We still have some tickets open, and we'll see you there in person inshallah with Muhammad Hijab, Abdullah Andalusi, Imam Tom, and brother and Dr. Ovamir Anjum, and many other speakers from around the world inshallah on October 21st. Barakallah fikum.
Barak fikum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you immensely, inshallah. I'm just gonna quickly wrap up with a few facts about Palestine and the current situation. So may Allah bless you for joining us, and inshallah we'll have you very soon.
Allah barak fi aman Allah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Take care, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I put together a whole list of things to talk about. So I would appreciate if you guys stick around to listen to them, inshallah, because this is in the heart of what's going on in Gaza. So I'll just stick to what is factual and important, inshallah. Like we mentioned, Gaza is 5 to 6 miles wide. That's shorter than people's like daily jog, and 25 miles long. That's like a marathon, basically. So you can, if people running a marathon basically run the whole length of Gaza. People going the daily jog the whole width of Gaza, to hold over 2 million people, half of whom are children under the age of 18. Like, they're children. So they were born into this. They were born into what's called the largest open air prison in the world. This is a concentration camp. And we haven't seen anything like this since World War II, really. And it's funny because you'll have people like Ben Shapiro that will say that you haven't seen anything like this since World War II about what's happening in Israel to their people, and not what has been happening for the last 75 years to the Palestinian people. So I think that is an immensely atrocious thing, and he is too scared to debate or engage in any kind of fair discussion with any pro-Palestinian who is educated on the matter. And I want to call him out, Jordan Peterson, Charlie Kirk, what's that guy's name? Steven Crowder, all you, I'm going to try not to swear, all you cowards, all you hypocrites, all you losers, frankly. You sit behind your screen and you refuse to engage with the opposition. If that is not pusillanimous and cowardly, I don't know what is. And you, Steven Crowder, sit with like guns in your holster and your overalls or whatever. Get the hell out of here. Anyways, they don't want to talk about the facts. So let's talk about the facts. Just in the last few days, okay, in the last few days, October 10th to October 11th, and I quote, Israel, in their use of white phosphorus in military operations in Gaza and in Lebanon, put civilians at risk of serious and long-term injuries. Human Rights Watch verified videos taken in Lebanon and Gaza on October 10th and 11th, 2023, respectively. White phosphorus is a chemical. It's chemical warfare. You guys hear that term a lot, like it exists in like Call of Duty. It's happening. You know, like imagine someone were like pour acid on you. You would burn. This is white phosphorus coming from the sky. And the quote goes on, but I'll end with saying that they said that basically it magnifies the risk to civilians and violates the international humanitarian law prohibiting on putting civilians at unnecessary risk. Another quote here, also October. The imposition of sieges that endanger the lives of civilians by depriving them of goods essential for their survival is prohibited under international humanitarian law. The High Commissioner said any restrictions on the movement of the people and goods to implement a siege must be justified by military necessity or may otherwise amount to collective punishment. Collective punishment is another a violation of human international law. So those are 3 violations of international law in the last few days. 3. Can you name one other country that's done that? Name one other country that has done that. This is recent. And Bet Shapiro wants to cry that, oh my God, people are babies were beheaded and shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. Really. Really. It's wallah, it's disgusting. And you know, on his atrocities, I want to share, I don't think I can pull it up on screen, but all I will mention quickly, and I have it right here. He wrote an article back in 2002, July 25th, titled, Enemy Civilian Casualties Okay by Me. And he says, I'm getting really sick of people who whine about civilian casualties. Maybe I'm a hard-hearted guy, but when I see in the newspapers that civilians in Afghanistan or in the West Bank were offed, Killed, by American or Israeli troops, I really don't care. Wow, Ben, way to expose yourself. Good job. 20 years ago. And he carries the same garbage rhetoric today. That coward will never debate anyone. You guys go watch Muhammad Ajab's video recently. When Muhammad Ajab was brought up in a video form, just video form on Piers Morgan's show, you could see how scared Ben Shapiro was, fumbling around, but this person and that. Loser. Anyways, yeah, so I'll end it there, inshallah. Listen, go to my Instagram, my TikTok, you'll see a link. It's a UK registered charity where 100% of the proceeds go directly to food and healthcare and basic necessities for the people in Palestine. Lots of brave souls out there working hard, putting their life at risk. I'm doing nothing, literally. I'm a loser. I'm doing nothing. I made a few videos and I've done a stream. There are people on the ground there putting their life at risk. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them, reward them, elevate them. And at the end of the day, if anyone is oft in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that they don't say about them that they're dead. They're with Allah, receiving his, sustenance from him, his rizq, alhamdulillah. And that's the state of Muslims. I'm going to end with one hadith. I know I said that was the end, but this is the real end, inshallah. The classified end. So the 20 people I just left are going to miss it. Prophet ﷺ, he said, the people will soon summon one another to attack you as people in eating invite others to share their dish. Did you hear that? Anyways, let's go on, inshallah. Someone asked, will that be because of our small numbers at that time? The Prophet ﷺ replied, no. You will be numerous at that time. You'll be a large in number, but you will be like the scum in the rubbish, like that carried down by a torrent. And Allah will take the fear of you from the chests of your enemy and last enervation into your hearts. And someone asked, what is that enervation into the hearts? The Prophet ﷺ said, love of the world and dislike of death. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us the fact that we love the dunya so much and we're so scared of death, just basically like the non-Muslims are, is the reason. Keep this in mind. Listen, this is the reason we're being attacked and humiliated and decimated left, right, and center, humiliated on a global scale. Because we're scared of death and we love the dunya too much. SubhanAllah. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if every single Muslim was like, I will put every single thing on the line? That's what the Sahaba did. Every single thing on the line. They're getting ready for a battle. Umar radiallahu anhu goes to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet asked him, what did you bring? And the Prophet, Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, I brought half of what I have. Then Abu Bakr came, and the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't ask, what did you bring? He said, what did you leave behind? Because he knew Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And he said, I left behind Allah and his messenger. Can you imagine if we had 2 billion, even just 2 million Abu Bakrs, but imagine 2 billion Abu Bakrs in the world, and Umar ibn Khattabs, and Khalid bin Walids, and subhanAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us like them and forgive us for our sins. Inshallah, I'm going to go ahead and end this off. Barakallah feekum for joining. May Allah bless you all immensely. Remember to donate, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free Palestine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free Palestine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free Palestine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy the faces of the oppressors and the people who attack innocent men, women, and children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in strength, increase us in yaqeen, increase us in knowledge of his deen, unite us as one ummah, and allow us to establish peace and establish Islam on the entire world. Allahumma ameen. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.